On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Kin by Whitechapel. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal and we like talking about it. Mm-hmm. Today we're talking about the new album, been out for a couple of weeks at this point. Kin by Whitechapel. They're an American deathcore band from Knoxville, Tennessee. They're a band that I've always kind of bounced off of a little bit. Not for any particular reason, just because it was like, it's Whitechapel, whatever.
It's fine. It's good.
It's fine. Like, the biggest attraction to the band has always been that Phil Bozeman is an extremely talented vocalist.
Right.
But like, I was playing with the wireless mouse USB. Started my computer made noise.
Sure.
But Phil Bozeman's a very good vocalist, but I always thought that musically it was just kind of, it's really heavy, really brutal deathcore, but whatever. And then for these last couple of albums, they've been taking things in a much more personal, much more, dare I say, nuanced direction, both sonically and lyrically. 2019's The Valley was supposedly very good. I've only listened to a little bit of it. I've focused on this album, but they're more or less meant to be a pair. The Valley and Kin are kind of meant to be two pieces of one whole in a way, or at least two parts of the same story of Phil kind of exercising some personal demons and working out some pretty horrific things that happened in his past. We'll talk more about that when we talk about the band.
Out of context, there's a couple of things in here that sound like maybe he's a stalker of some kind.
Once I explain like the concept of the album, I think it'll make a little bit more sense.
All come together.
Yeah, that like once I understood what the album was meant to be about, a lot of things sort of opened up. And that's like, I think there are some people who are kind of, and this is, a very valid way to consume art and media, but like the idea that you should not seek out the author's intention if you're reading a thing or, watching a film, you shouldn't necessarily look for interviews where the director says, like, this is what the movie's about. There are some people who think that you shouldn't do that you should rely entirely on your own conception of a thing. And I think there's some validity to that.
But it's give and take.
Yeah. And I also think with like extreme metal, where maybe you don't necessarily understand all of the lyrics that are being said, there is, I think, a fair bit of validity to also seeking like what's going on here? What is this supposed to mean? And it can hit differently after that. There's like almost all of the songs on Jane Doe by Converge. I had no idea what the fuck any of those were about, because you can't understand a solitary word Jacob Bannon says on that entire record. So I looked up like what every song was supposed to be about, and I vibed with the vibe was different after that. I think that's I can see with movies it being a little bit different, especially like movies where there isn't a ton of dialogue and stuff. That I can understand. Maybe like myself, I probably wouldn't look up like what did the director intend for this to mean? Because also, depending upon the movie, the director didn't necessarily intend for it to mean anything. They're like, yeah, let's open it. It's like the movie Annihilation. I was watching a video by Dan Olson, who has a channel called Folding Ideas, talking about how there's so many like YouTube channels who completely miss the point of the movie Annihilation.
Sure.
Which is that you're not necessarily supposed to be thinking of what's happening in the film in the terms of our reality. Like the film is very open-ended, and really what the movie's about is like the emotional experiences of the characters that are in it. But so many people are like, oh, is she an alien at the end? Is she gonna fuck her husband who's also an alien? Are they gonna make more aliens? Is the shimmer thing gonna spread more? Oh, it's like, no, that doesn't matter. Stop focusing on that. It's a movie about a bunch of depressed people going into a thing that's It's been a little while since I've seen it.
I haven't seen it at all.
It's a great movie. It's creepy as hell.
Who directed that? Is it
Alex Garland?
Oh, okay.
Who also
he's on the Supreme Court, isn't he?
Yeah, he's on the Supreme Court. What were the other Alex Garland movies? I can't remember if he wrote and directed or just wrote Ex Machina.
Oh, really?
Which was a fantastic
That
film.
was a great movie.
I can't remember if he wrote that or if he just directed it. He also wrote the screenplay for Sunshine.
Really?
He wrote the screenplay for 28 Days Later.
I've never seen 28 Days Later.
Neither have I. The film Dread, the 2012 version of Dread, which I really, really like. I think the 2012 Dread is fantastic.
It's way better than the Stallone version.
It's not even, they're hardly even comparable.
Yeah, it's not the same movie.
It's so much better. It's hardly even comparable. Yes, his directorial debut was Ex Machina. And I thought Alex Garland did that movie. Maybe he didn't. Let me figure this out. Yeah, he did. Okay. He directed that. But yeah, it's a great, wow. I can't talk. It's got, who's in that movie? Oscar Isaac is in it.
He's an Ex Machina too.
Yeah. And then it's Natalie Portman.
Who's also in Star Wars.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. I was like, what's the Star Wars connection? And then I remembered Oscar Isaac was in Star Wars. I almost forget that Oscar Isaac was in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because he's been in so many other extremely good things.
Right.
That it's like, to me, Poe Dameron is such a forgettable character.
Very throwaway character.
He's so clearly, it's like, oh, we need a Han Solo type.
Sure.
Let's get the most boilerplate Han Solo like XP we possibly can.
And
and then cast this incredibly talented dramatic actor to be him.
I remember seeing The Force Awakens, and then when Poe Dameron's character had survived, I'm like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah,
because he crashed to the X-wing or the TIE fighter,
and they also never explain how he survived or got out of that. Or
I got better.
Why he was nowhere to be seen when Finn woke up. Yeah. And like, if Finn was clearly out in the sand near where the TIE fighter was, why didn't Poe go? Finn was at that point still wearing his stormtrooper armor. Right. Highly visible in the sands of that planet. Not camouflaged at all. It's like, do you just leave him there? I guess he's just this guy is he's just just a fucking stormtrooper. I don't care if he helped me out, whatever. Anyway, it's enough of our feelings about the Disney Star Wars trilogy. How are you this day?
I'm doing okay. I'm buying a car probably tomorrow. Because I wrecked my other car last month, and I've been without a car for
the ongoing saga of your car trouble.
Yeah, irritating. And so I've been borrowing the company car, and I'm having to be very mindful because like tonight I left the house a little early because no one had eaten dinner at the house. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna hit like Hardee's or something. Yeah. And I felt kind of weird being in the Hardee's drive-through. Look in
the company vehicle plastered with our
logo stickers all over it. Yeah. So hey, WGO eats at Hardee's, and I'm thinking, do they advertise?
I don't think Hardee's does.
I don't think they do
with us at all. There's most of the like fast food places in town don't really advertise with us other than Taco John's, Taco Bell, and McDonald's.
Right. Taco Bell commercials? I suppose in
those nationally syndicated ones, they don't deal directly.
They don't intentionally run ads on our station.
But the local McDonald's franchises and Taco John's do. Sonic was a big customer of ours for a while, and then they stopped. We get Sonic back. Yeah, I give them so much of my fucking money. They should advertise with us. Return the favor. Contribute to my paycheck for a change.
I also have a really bad canker sore on my tongue.
That sucks.
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
I don't know.
Did you eat something cold and then you ate something really hot?
I don't know what I did.
That can happen. Like, right? That can be a triggering thing with canker sores, right?
Well, just an unfavorable pH level in your mouth.
Yeah. Okay. Because I feel like sometimes I'll eat something really hot and then eat something really cold and do those two things too quickly. And I feel like that's when I get a canker sore. But I don't fully understand the biological mechanism of how that happens. So I'm talking out of my asshole at the moment. But yeah. Surprising thing happened on Monday. It was the 20-year anniversary of Xbox.
Really?
And also the 20-year anniversary of Halo. Wow. And for that, they surprise released the multiplayer component of Halo Infinite. They're just like, hey, here's the multiplayer, because it's free to play. So, and it's not like directly bundled with the campaign. So they're like, hey, we're starting the multiplayer beta. It's not technically the full release, but everyone can play it. It's free to, like, anyone can download it and it's free to play.
Sure. You can download, but they don't send you like a disc or anything.
No. That's how when you buy a game on Steam, they send you a disc.
Right.
But it's that, like, the campaign is what's being sold as a product.
Gotcha.
Versus the multiplayer, which is free. Although, like, there is a lot of hubbub over the way that their battle pass system works.
Yeah.
Because, like, the part of the advertising for the multiplayer is like, it's the, most levels of customization ever in a Halo game before. The thing that they didn't tell you was exactly the ratio of how many items are free and how many of them you have to get via paying for a battle pass.
Like with actual money.
Yeah. And because, like, there's no loot boxes or anything like that, which everybody's fond of not having loot boxes. But the other thing, so it's like, yes, when you get the battle pass, you know what you're going to get. The other annoying thing, though, is there is no what they call match XP, where, no matter what, if you're playing games, you're earning XP and progressing through the battle pass and unlocking items. Instead, it's all challenge-based XP. So every day there will be a list of things that you want to go and do if you want to make any progress through the battle pass and unlock these items.
So you have to play the game daily to do it.
You don't have to play the game daily to do it. And unlike some other free-to-play games where, like, the battle pass expires when the season is over, and congratulations, if you didn't complete it, you never get to go back and get those other items you wanted. This, it sticks around forever. So that, like, there's some validity to the value of that. And because it's a free-to-play game, they have to earn money somehow. And I understand that. But it's like the fact that they're, like, once you have paid for this product, you then have to do a whole bunch of bullshit that you don't necessarily want to do. It's like, just let me once I've given you my money, just let me unlock the shit by playing normally instead of having to kill 5 people with this specific weapon, or, knock somebody off the map using the repulsor, which is something that's not even possible on some maps. And because you're also not guaranteed to play in matches where the items that you need to complete matches, where the items that you need to complete the challenges, you're not guaranteed to play on maps where you can possibly complete the challenges, because It's all the matchmaking is basically randomized at the moment. There's no specific playlists, and you don't get to choose what map you're playing on. And like you don't get to choose game modes either. There's some challenges that are game mode specific, and you might just get shitty luck and end up in 5 capture the flag matches in a row when you want to be playing Slayer. And it's that's annoying. And it sucks because the rest of the game is so fucking good. It's such a solid game, but the progression aspect of it is kind of poorly implemented at this point. They've basically the developers have basically said like, okay, we get it, because that was everybody's first complaint. It's been like,
well, it's in beta.
24 hours later, that was everybody going like, this sucks, change it. And they're hopefully going to in some meaningful way. But yeah, and it is also technically in beta, but it doesn't really feel like it's in beta because, again, it is open to everybody. You don't need an invite. You just go to the Steam page and hit download and you have it because it's free. So
that's what I'm going to do on my laptop. So I'm going to go my Steam. I have the Steam app and
there you go.
Download it on my my laptop. That is.
I don't know if it can. I don't think it can run.
Because I have a 386 chip in there, and it
how many floppies do you have?
How many floppies?
Yeah.
Oh man, you mean it's a big stack of them? Of course.
You might need more. You might need more floppies. You have to switch them out.
Right.
Every time you play a new map.
Will they send me the floppies?
Yeah, they'll send you floppies in the mail. It's like the original Doom,
sure,
where they would just send you floppies in the mail essentially whenever the new part would come out. It's weird to me how the original Doom actually was released, where there's significant portions of it that were basically free. I don't remember how exactly you were meant to get them, but like
you couldn't get them on the internet.
You would get floppy disks in the mail.
Well, and
from id Software, and you put them on your computer and you play Doom.
You could buy them at a computer store,
I suppose, but because I think they also came out progressively because it wasn't all on one.
Right.
It was episodic.
Floppy disks, the old floppy disks really couldn't hold all that much information on them. So
I know that, but the original Doom, I think, came out piecemeal over the course of a couple months. I don't know. I don't remember that happening. I wasn't fucking alive then.
I was.
It was a year before I was born, I'm pretty sure. I think it was 1995.
Is it 95?
I want to say it was 95.
I thought it was older than that.
Doom. Original. 1993. Yeah. Okay. I was like, it's either 95 or it's 1993, which means it would have came out the same year as Jurassic Park.
Wow, yeah.
Doom and Jurassic Park came out the same year.
They're equally technologically advanced.
One has held up a lot better than the other. Doom was extremely advanced for its time.
For a video game, yeah.
For a video game in 1993, Doom was absolutely revolutionary. But Jurassic Park is aged a lot better than the original Doom. I don't think that's a controversial statement.
Right. Well, because this is back before CG, so they had to use real dinosaurs.
Yeah. It was pretty difficult wrangling all the real dinosaurs for Jurassic Park.
They had to have
that lawyer that got eaten. That wasn't in the script.
No, that actually there. They were shooting, and that happened.
That just happened,
and they had to get permission from his family.
He really had to go to the bathroom. He ran into those huts, and the T-Rex chased him because their vision's based on movement.
It is.
So,
and he was having one.
Who the fuck came up with that? I don't know I can't remember if that was in the book or not. If that was in the Michael Crichton book, the idea that T-Rex's vision would be based on movement. The reason why that's weird is because I don't think there's a single living creature that has eyes that way.
Right. Or there's wired that way. Right. Yeah.
Where they're basically blind unless something is moving. which is crazy to me because if that's the way it works, then it could just move its head.
Then everything would be moving.
Yeah, it would create the illusion that the world is moving. Like your brain doesn't necessarily differentiate the tooth. Well, I mean, it does in a sense because
your brain does. My brain does.
Well, but like the human brain is very good at picking up patterns and movement and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you would think a Tyrannosaurus Rex, also being a predator with binocular vision, it's even though its brain was
size of a walnut,
comparatively quite small. I don't think it was. I don't know if it was actually the size of a walnut, but when you compare the size of a Tyrannosaurus's head with the size of its brain and the size of our head with the size of our brain, it was comparatively very small.
Right.
But also, I think a lot of like large theropod dinosaurs, their nervous system was probably spread out quite a bit more. There's modern day birds, because again, birds are dinosaurs, that have like a chicken. The reason a chicken can survive for a while without its whole ass head is because their nervous systems are quite spread out.
Yeah. Like the biggest example of that is the octopus, of course.
Yeah. Well, obviously octopi are birds because they have beaks. Everybody knows that an octopus is a bird because an octopus has a beak.
I was going to say that they have separate cephalization in each of their limbs.
That's true. You were just saying spread out nervous systems, not necessarily saying that an octopus was a bird.
I'd like to see an octopus covered in feathers. That would be...
I don't want to see that. I'm all right not seeing that. I feel like that would be very unsettling.
A raptorpus.
That's a band name. It's uncomfortable, but that's a band name. Right? What's up? We're Raptorpus. What the fuck does that even mean?
We're part hawk.
Bunch of furries with a dinosaur fetish.
Part cephalopod.
I was going a different direction. It wouldn't be Raptorpus. It would be Raptor Cloaca.
Sure, yeah.
But, God, that's stupid. Anyway, want to talk about Whitechapel?
Yeah, sure.
So Whitechapel's a deathcore band from Knoxville, Tennessee. They're kind of known for being like one of the first. They're among the biggest bands of like the first generation of deathcore. I don't know if there really is any authoritative take on what the first deathcore band was. I think the genesis of the genre was slow and wide enough that it was like it's just a general trend of some bands in the early 2000s towards deathcore rather than any sort of thing that you could definitively say is like the first deathcore band. But I think like the first generation it is easy to identify the first generation of bands that you can definitively say like all these guys are deathcore. And among that you have bands like Whitechapel.
Sure.
Suicide Silence is the biggest one and probably one of the earliest ones. Carnifex. And the very first EP from Job for a Cowboy, because after that EP, they kind of switched over to more of a straightforward death metal sound rather than a sticking with deathcore. But like the genre was kind of born on MySpace in the mid 2000s, and it was sort of growing out of the trend of metalcore at the time when there were a lot of metalcore bands that were becoming more and more melodic, and it was sort of a split between. Like, okay, there's metalcore bands that are getting more and more melodic, and here's the opposite direction of deathcore, like metalcore bands that are getting heavier and heavier. So the band was formed in 2006 by Phil Bozeman as the vocalist, as well as Ben Savage on guitar. And no, it's not the actor Ben Savage playing guitar for them.
That would be awesome.
That would be cool, but it's a different Ben Savage. But they released their first full album in 2008, or was it 2007? Let's see. I think it was, 2007, their first full-length album called The Somatic Defilement. And they were sort of very much defined by how extremely intense and heavy their sound was. leaning a lot more into than leaning a lot more than some other bands of that era into the death, like more of a death metal style rather than like metalcore, but heavier. This was like it's I always got the impression it was more like death metal, but with breakdowns. Sure. And the more consistent use of guttural vocals, because there is a clear difference between a lot of like deathcore vocals and the type of death growling that you hear in traditional death metal. To me, they're two very different things. Like deathcore vocals tend to be much deeper and more guttural in a lot of different ways, and more rhythmic. Yeah, more rhythmic.
There's a lot of polyrhythms in this.
Yes, and that's just something that Whitechapel has sort of developed as part of their sound. Or it's not necessarily a genre-wide trait, but it's they're slightly different. You know, comparing like Phil Bozeman's vocals to something like Corpse Grinder, where like, you know, George Fisher is there. It's much raspier in a lot of ways and a lot less gurgly. But and also a lot of deathcore bands tend to have a pretty wide range of extremes in the vocals. You'll have extremely deep, gurgly, you know, nasty noises down in the low part of the register, and then you'll have some really, really high shrieks and stuff like that. The high part of the register has never been a big part of Phil Bozeman's repertoire. He uses it pretty rarely.
But he does do, like, he's a great singing voice. Like singing voice.
That is a new thing in Whitechapel. The first time that they used like clean vocals on any one of their albums was in Mark of the Blade in 2015, I believe, or 2016 is when Mark of the Blade came out, and they had one song there that was dedicated to Phil's dad. And I think there was like a couple of songs in there that had clean vocals, and then The Valley came out in 2018, which used even more. And then I think Ken has used the most clean vocals so far. There was a song in The Valley called Hickory Creek that they released an acoustic cover of, and that was the first song that they released that was entirely clean sung.
There's two of them on this album.
Yes, there's two on here that are, although like even both of the ones that are entirely clean sung, where he doesn't do like his growls.
There's still some intensity.
He adds some grit in there every once in a while. For the most part, he has a very deep voice, and his singing voice is very smooth and buttery. He sounds like. It's very much the same kind of sound that you would hear in a lot of like frontmen for like alternative rock bands throughout the 2000s.
I mean, when I was listening to this, I was sort of doing other stuff. First time I listened to it, doing other stuff. So suddenly I'm like, wait a minute, did I just hit a button and now I'm listening to a Tool song? Yeah. I swear this is Maynard Keenan singing right now.
And it's like that's just, I think, it's just Phil's singing voice. And it almost like there was a part of me that almost had a reaction to that at first. That was just like, that sounds so like radio rock, but the rest of it does not. It's like, that's just Phil's singing voice. And it also, I also liked it because there's not a lot in the first half of the album where when he does do his clean singing voice, there's not a lot of range to it. You know, he doesn't play around with the pitch or the key all that much. But then in the last half of the album, he shows off a little bit more range, starts belting a little bit.
Right.
And that's, I like hearing that. I don't know why. It bothers me a little bit when I listen to albums of any genre where it feels like the singer never pushes themselves in any particular direction.
Right.
On one hand, that can be good because you don't want to necessarily dig yourself into a hole that you can't get yourself out of when it comes time to perform songs live.
Sure.
And it's like, I can't do this consistently. That was, you know, me trying several different takes in studio and it just working out.
And then they try to do it live and everybody's going,
it's like, yeah, Dream Theater.
Very ambitious band, Dream Theater.
Yes. Well, it's like everybody, I mean, we've talked about this so many times, but it's like everybody else in the band still doing fantastic, playing
Sure.
their instruments par excellence at every live show.
Because their instruments aren't made out of meat.
And James LaBrie is he's getting older, and his instrument is aging with him. He can't just get a new throat. That's not something you can do yet.
I think that it's on the horizon very shortly.
That is mentioned in Cyberpunk 2077 because there is the character that's living inside your head.
Yeah.
Is
Keanu Reeves.
Is Keanu Reeves. Yeah. But he was Johnny Silverhand was the front man for a band called Samurai, and one of the other characters that you meet in the game is his bandmate from Samurai, Kerry Eurodyne, who went on to have a long solo career, but he's also like 80 something years old, but it's the future and he's extremely rich. So he looks like he's 42. But he has had like his throat like completely replaced, more or less. I think he made like he had them make like a biological clone, like they cloned his flesh essentially.
Right.
This, the way that you can grow an ear on the back of a mouse or something like that. It was something to that effect where he is like undergone reconstructive surgery on his throat basically but it's cyberpunk. So it's, super easy and fairly commonplace.
I saw a story, and I feel like this is a complete bullshit story. In fact, I'm sure it is. But there was this guy who got some sort of a really bad, like flesh-eating bacteria or disease on his genitals, and it completely ate them away.
Okay.
And so he had money, so they said we can regrow it, but we can
grow you a new penis.
Yeah, but it won't be there. I mean, we'll move it there, but it'll be on like your arm until it's fully regrown.
That may have happened.
They feel like, and then what happened was that COVID set in and he couldn't get an appointment, so now he just has a dick arm. I feel like it's a bullshit story, but
it's vaguely plausible. The thing that's most unbelievable about it is that your penis requires quite a lot of blood flow.
Right.
There's nowhere else on the human body that really supplies the amount of blood flow necessary.
Yeah, it requires a lot of blood flow for operational use.
Yeah, but I feel like the veins are still there.
Right.
I don't think they're empty necessarily, but I don't know. I don't know enough about anatomy to truly answer that. I feel like it's vaguely plausible.
Right.
I just don't know if it is real.
Yeah.
But, it is real.
What's that?
This album.
It is real. It is very real.
Although the subject matter is fantasized somewhat. So the concept of this album, the last two albums have been a lot of Phil exploring his past, essentially. So Phil Bozeman grew up in, I believe he grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee. And he has 2 or 3 older sisters. He's the youngest of all their siblings. He had a really close relationship with his dad growing up until his dad passed away from a cardiac event when he was 10. Ugh. And then his mother passed away from a drug overdose 5 years later. And apparently
he had a stepdad at that point or something.
Yeah. His mother's second husband was apparently abusive and got her hooked on drugs and was a drug addict himself. Phil has basically said, like, that's the only person in the world that I actually genuinely hate. And I was reading an interview and Phil mentioned that he had died a number of years ago, or I don't know if it was even years ago. It might have been months, but he had died relatively recently. And Phil was basically talking about, it's like, I don't know how I feel about myself, because he described feeling very happy that this person was dead. And it's like, I don't know if that makes me a bad person or not, but he more or less blames this man for killing his mother. So very, very rough childhood from age 10 onward for him. Part of the subject of this album is him basically continuing to explore those demons by representing some of them. Part of the idea of kin, and it's on the cover art
Right.
is the idea of the person he could have been sort of haunting him.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he's considering himself the best outcome of the, his upbringing, facing off against the person he left behind, more or less.
Sure.
And that's why, like, so many of the lyrics, there's a lot of us and a lot of we.
Mm-hmm.
And it's essentially him and what he more or less considers his evil twin,
Right,
essentially.
The second to last and third to last tracks is without you and without us.
Yes.
Yeah.
The part of the idea of it is like, I had something there and I kind of lost it a little bit, but
Sorry.
It's fine. Part of it though is I really lost it. I don't know. I think it's an interesting concept in the very least, and it provides a lot of interesting avenues for exploring that. I kind of remember what I was trying to say.
Okay.
Is that like this other self is also someone who is trapped in the past in ways that he doesn't consider himself to be. Obsessed with trying to cling on to the memory of their parents, more or less, and trying to bring them back when, that's impossible. You can't do that, and you have to move forward. You have to move on with your life. And like it was reading more interviews with him and how he's seems to be a very disciplined person. Mm-hmm. And like it even comes off in his stage performance because like he's not running around he's like pacing back and forth across the stage. He's so extremely focused in every live performance I've ever seen of Whitechapel. He's like just soldier like in his focus. It's intimidating almost, and he's not a very big guy too. Right. He's like 5'6" or something, but it's like extremely focused. And he's mentioned he drinks very rarely. He doesn't really care for he doesn't care for drugs. He doesn't care for marijuana, partially because he doesn't the thing that most people like about drugs and alcohol, where you don't have to feel like yourself for a bit, is the thing that he doesn't like.
Right. Not feeling like himself.
He doesn't like being taken out of, feeling like he's losing some sort of control. Jesus, that scared the shit out of me.
I scared myself. Sorry about that.
Shit my pants. I shit my pants.
I almost shit your pants too.
How did you shit my pants? I don't know why I'm turning into Columbo. But one more thing. Did you shit my pants?
Ask you one question.
Just one more question. Why did you say that you shit my pants? That's a weird thing to say, don't you think? Does this album slap?
Yeah, this slaps a lot.
It slaps a lot. Sometimes it doesn't slap though. And instead it puts like two hands on your shoulders and is like shaking you back and forth.
Yeah.
So much. It like Phil Bozeman's always been an amazing vocalist, but it doesn't matter what style he's singing in. There is so much pain that is translated through it, whether he's doing his screamed vocals or whether he's clean singing. It's so crazy how much anguish is clearly transferable. He also, as far as like deathcore vocalists go, is so easy to understand.
Right.
Like even his harshest, deepest gutturals are pretty easy to understand compared to a fair number of others.
Right, he's pretty well pronounced.
He enunciates very well, even when he is growling. It's fantastic. The other like thing that translates emotion so well is Jesus Christ, the guitars.
Oh,
the guitar solos are fantastic.
And they're not that all over the place, kind of, loose and fast and loose. No, it's real emotional.
It's not showing off.
Right. There's a lot of melody in there. And
it's fantastic. Yeah. They're not flashy necessarily.
No.
At least, not when it's not called for. It's as much as I love John Petrucci. It's not that situation where it's like, it's clear how insanely talented. It's like, no, if we don't need, and there are certainly Dream Theater songs where like John Petrucci knows when to slow down and just feel things out.
Sure.
but it's a problem this album doesn't have, I think, is losing the emotions through just wanting to make something as fast or as brutal, as complicated as possible. You don't miss out on anything because of the instrumentation. It only adds to the atmosphere of it. And I think like this album as well, and I need to listen to more of The Valley, like bringing in some acoustic guitar that actually gives it a kind of distinctly Tennessee feel. It does
feel very Tennessee.
Like it's you can feel their home state sort of bleeding into it in ways that is not apparent whatsoever on their earlier albums, because their earlier albums were all like the lyrics may as well be Cannibal Corpse lyrics in their earlier albums. It's all just gory, blood-soaked, deathcore stuff. It's all very impersonal.
But this is very personal.
These last couple of albums have taken a turn in that direction, and I think it's a turn for a better. It's something that I find more engaging than the alternative, even if the alternative is fun and impressive. It's just something that never really grabbed me the way that this does. Yeah,
and with the acoustic portions and the actual emotional, like sort of clean singing parts, that only act to prop up the parts where he's really intense with the growls and the intense guitars.
It cleanses the palate a little bit.
Yeah.
Dynamics. But I was looking up some reviews. Out of 5 reviews, this came out to 81. I think it deserves better than that. I also only found 5. Like The Valley ended up on a lot of different publications, like year-end lists.
Yeah,
I think this will as well. And it's only been out for 3 weeks at this point, so there might be more reviews coming down the pipe or that sort of thing. And we're also close to the end of the year, so people might be saving some of their opinions on it for their year-end lists. Who knows?
Who knows?
What's your favorite song?
Well, it's either is it called To the Wolves or no Of the Wolf?
To the Wolves.
To the Wolves. I love that song. I love how it begins. I love how intense it is.
To the Wolves has like the most. It is like a straight up like classic death metal style of riff, just extremely fast tremolo picking.
Fucking love that.
But like in the way it opens, it's like, fuck yeah, this is so heavy.
Yeah.
And it's so weird because after the middle portion of the song, after experiencing some clean vocals and some guitar solos, they bring that riff back.
Yeah.
And it is the same, but somehow it sounds completely different because suddenly you can like hear the melody in it. It's
like they introduced that melody subconsciously in the middle part of the song.
Yeah. And when that opening super intense riff comes back towards the end, somehow it's still just as intense and super heavy, but it's like the Kuleshov effect in editing. Do you know what that is?
I've heard of it, but I don't remember what it is.
It's basically a demonstration of creating context through editing, where you can show an image of a man's face, then you show an image of an object, then you go back to like an image of a man's face. And depending upon the object that you showed in the middle, your idea of what emotion the man is experiencing changes, despite the fact that it's like the same face.
Right. Same face, same photo.
Yeah, it's the same photo, or it's a still, not necessarily a still image, but it's like a film shot of a man just standing still with a blank face. But it's like that's it, used. It's a film technique that's been used constantly, and most of the times not consciously necessarily, but it's an important part of film editing. Essentially, is creating context and trying to translate emotions that characters are feeling through the use of editing without just relying on the performance alone. And this was like a musical version of that, that riff. I also really, really love that riff. I love so many of the songs on this record. The one I wrote down as my favorite, though, is Anti-Cure.
Yes.
I thought that was fantastic. I think Orphan is fantastic as well.
The title cut is great.
The title cut, which is the closing track, which I love when bands do that. I'm a sucker for that. I'm a sucker for when the title track is the closing track, and the closing track is also appropriately like epic and awesome.
Yeah.
And this was this like this album in so many ways slid right into my happy place. Like it fits exactly. It's like it's like my brain. If my brain's a puzzle, it just slips right in, right where it's supposed to be.
Sure.
It does so many of the things that I like, and it does them so well. And it's something that I never expected would come from Whitechapel of all bands,
right? Which,
as I mentioned at the start of this,
right,
is a band that I was always kind of like, whatever. Sure. It's Whitechapel. Yeah. Phil Bozeman's great, but as the band's nothing super special. Whatever.
I like their tiny burgers. It's fine.
Yeah. The name, by the way, is a reference to what's his name? Famous London serial killer.
Jack the Ripper.
Yeah. It was the neighborhood of London where he murdered 5 people. To quote Kyle Kinane, it's like, did you say 5?
It was a weird time for me to get American pride.
You could throw a rock down the road at a place where more than 5 people died. I'm from the Midwest. Do you know how many serial killers there are there? But yeah, it's a reference to Jack the Ripper,
right?
But there's this album. I'm so pleasantly surprised with this and with the direction that they have taken, because they've gone firmly into exactly the type of music that I most enjoy. And I dig it. So with that being said, what metal are you bestowing upon this, like Maskanada to Chewbacca?
I'm going to actually say it just gets over the line of gold for me. It's where it is. I want to hear more of their stuff to get more context, like The Valley. I want to hear that. I like to hear their older stuff as well. But this gets over the line for gold.
This is firmly in gold territory for me. I don't know if it's the highest gold it could possibly be, but it's an album that I really like. And I think it's one that, especially certain songs off of this, that I will be coming back to a lot. I've already listened to the acoustic version of Hickory Creek like 5 times. There's just something about Phil Bozeman's like clean singing. It's like, I know it's, like, he's very good, but there's nothing particularly special about his clean singing other than like, oh, it's super neat that someone can go between these really intense, super deep, super guttural, growls and screams to something that is as smooth and as clean as he can do. But like when you compare it to other people who only do clean singing, it's like, it's not super special, but there's something about it that's just like crack. I just want more of it.
Yeah.
The other thing about Phil Bozeman, too, is like, especially these days, he does not look like he's the singer of a deathcore band. He looks like he's, like he could be like an Abercrombie and Fitch model or something like that. He's just, clean cut, clean hair. He's got some tattoos. He used to have like big stretched ears, but he had those sewn up because he got tired of them like clacking around while he was trying to sleep.
Sure.
Which is something I never considered. It's like I have a couple of friends who have stretched ears. It's like, I never thought about how they sleep. I think a lot of people take them out. But anyway, it sort of depends on how big they are, whether or not it can be a problem. But
dinner plates.
Yeah. But like the other thing is like when you get them sewn up, is like they actually, for a lot of people, if you do choose to get them sewn up and whoever did it was halfway's competent, because there's a lot of piercing places that can do it. You don't necessarily need to like go to a hospital or anything.
Plastic surgeon.
Yeah, you don't need to go to a plastic surgeon unless maybe you had really big plugs in there.
Sure.
It's like
hubcaps.
It's like there's a guy I knew in college who had stretched ears, and then while I knew him, he got them sewn up. It's like you'd never be able to tell. But anyway. Next week, what are you going to bring for us to listen to?
I'm going to do something I haven't done before.
Yes.
I haven't run out of bands that I love that I haven't brought yet. But I'm going to bring a band back that I have brought before.
Okay.
I've never done that before.
Are you sure?
I don't think I've ever repeated a band.
Yeah, I feel like you haven't. I feel like that's correct. Anyway, what are you doing?
I'm going to bring the 1991 album from Sepultura.
Okay.
Arise.
Arise. Okay.
Yeah.
Arise.
I think it's their 3rd album, or is it their 4th album?
I don't know.
I think it's their 4th.
By Sepultura. Okay. That's next week. Until then, we're on social media, specifically Twitter and Facebook. Find us at Bronze Metalist and follow us there, I guess, if you want to find, we'll tweet out or post episode links if you want to listen on your browser, maybe. Otherwise, just on your mobile device, we're on the Apple iTunes app. No, what the fuck? Every time.
Yeah.
Every single time.
It's just the podcast
app. I feel like if you say iTunes podcast, people will get it eventually. They'll just think that you're old and out of touch, which I am out of touch, but I'm not old.
I am all those things.
It'll happen to you. We're also on Libsyn's, the podcast source. So you can find it in your Google Play Store if you got an Android like me. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening to another episode of the Bronze Metalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ. Congratulations.